Muy buenas tardes. Wow, I feel so comfortable up here. We used to come here every Friday and we would report to Victor and the board. And that's the way it should have been. And it's so impressive to see so many people here today that are such influencers, such contributors to the community, always giving. Well, like Victor, I'm bilingual and bicultural, so I have to put on my glasses to see my notes. But as I see him in the back there, I think about what he stood for, what he did as a person, as an individual, coming from Texas to Los Angeles to San Jose, always thinking, how am I going to help community? And I didn't know Victor when I got here as president of the National Hispanic University. I was at Fresno State for many years, and I came here, but I was on the board with Dr. Cruz and NHU for about 9 years, and I heard about Victor, and I heard about many of the things that were going on in San Jose. So when I became president of the National Hispanic University, I said, someday I'm going to sit down with Don Victor and we're going to talk. Well, it wasn't about 6 months that I got summoned by Victor. And I said, okay, where are we meeting? And he and another associate of his that was mentioned earlier, Sal Alvarez, took me to a real kind of a dark place in downtown San Jose that I had never even been to. And then we walked through a few halls and we got to the back room and we sat down and Sal took out a tablet this long and Victor sat there just looking at me. And he says, Dr. Lopez, I hear you're from Fresno and you're now president of NHU. We have some questions for you. And I said, okay. He started out asking a few questions, Sal taking notes, and they continued. Next thing I know, it's an hour. And then it's 2 hours. And I'm thinking, okay, these guys are really interested in what we're doing. And little did I know that Victor knew a lot about people at NHU and a lot about the students at NHU, and he cared for those students. And he wanted to make sure that I knew. So I said, I'm going to oblige, and I'm going to continue to sit here and talk to them. We sat there for 3 hours. Finally, the meeting's over. Victor and I and Sal walk out of this long, dark building. It's downtown. I still know where it's at. I drive by it. I think, oh, that's where I met with Victor and Sal in 2003. I hadn't been here 6 months. And we come outside, and Victor stands like this in his botas, and he's picking up his pants. And I'm standing in front of him, and I'm thinking, is he going to just reach out to me? And I said, maybe I should reach out to him. So we're looking at each other. So finally, being the Chicano that I am, I said, Don Victor, you and I are going to be good friends. And he looked at me. You know how you squinted? I can see him back in that picture back there. In that picture, he squinted and looked at me. He says, Dr. Lopez. And he gave me kind of a nod, and I said, we're going to be friends. He's going to be an advocate. He's going to help me. Only been there 6 months. Then he looked at me and said, Dr. Lopez, we're going to be watching you. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I grew this beard and mustache and goatee in honor of Victor Garza in 3 days. Don't I look like him? We're going to be watching you, Dr. Lopez. I left there, went back to NHU and sat in my chair, looked at those beautiful hills, and I had to reflect on what Victor told me that day. And you know what he taught me? He was teaching me. He taught me how to process things, think things through, calibrate and recalibrate, because he wanted to make sure that NHU was going to serve the community and that I was an instrument to help in that process. And Victor believed in this community so deeply that we became such good friends, I would say brothers, in reimagining and rethinking higher education for Latinos. And we did that for 12 years. And yes, I had a distinguished board, but there were times, many times I'd come to Victor and say, I need somebody to brainstorm with, to think things through with. And boy, he asked the tough questions, the good questions, but he always had my back. And that's why when Bob asked me to come here today, and anytime Victor asked, sin pregunta, without a doubt, without a question, I'd show up. And the last year, he and I had 2 great conversations. And I told him, no se me ha quitado, Victor. I'm still in this reimagining, rethinking higher education. I went down to Los Angeles for 2 years, the last 2 years. I'm back. I'm still reimagining, but I shared it with him. And he says, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? How can I help? And I saw that he was already getting a little bit weak, a little bit challenged, but he still had it in him, and no se le quitó. He had that ganas to help community. And each and every one of you have it. That's why you're here. And he held us accountable for it. And now we have a real challenge. Because if you say you're advocating for the community, and you're gonna serve the community, and you're a public servant, you better be there at 110%. Because not only do you got God watching you, you got Victor. We're gonna be watching you. And I know that, and I'm gonna give 100% reimagining and rethinking higher education, porque no se me ha quitado. Gracias.